Daddy, look, Mommy! The homeless black woman looked just like her, and the millionaire fainted. Don't touch the window. She's probably diseased. The security guard's voice was sharp enough to cut through silk. The little girl's hand froze midair, her small fingers leaving ghosted prints on the spotless glass of the Langston boutique. She looked up, confused. Outside, the woman crouched barefoot on the sidewalk, her knees pressed to concrete darkened with city grime. Her skin was the color of rich mahogany, dulled by ash and time. Her hair, once regal, was now matted beneath a torn scarf. She clutched something close to her chest, something faded and shaking in her weathered hands. Inside, the world spun differently. Crystal chandeliers glinted over 15,000 handbags and stiff champagne glasses. Beneath one of them stood Victor Langston, billionaire magnate, mid-sentence on a Bluetooth call, tapping half-listening responses on his phone. The boutique was laughter and luxury, until, "Daddy, look! Mommy!" The girl's voice rang out like a bell, cutting the room in half. The room froze. Victor's head snapped up. The girl, 5 years old, was pressing her nose to the glass now, completely unfazed by the bodyguard trying to peel her away. "There! That's Mommy from my dreams," she said, pointing, her tiny finger directed toward the woman outside. The murmurs began instantly, half laughter, half confusion. Champagne halted mid-sip. The boutique manager shifted uncomfortably. Phones were subtly raised for photos. Victor stared through the glass. The homeless woman didn't move. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. Slowly, she lifted her face, and her eyes locked with his. Something ancient flickered there. Grief, betrayal, recognition. And in her trembling hands, she held a photo. Worn, creased from years of being folded and unfolded, protected like sacred scripture. Victor's eyes dropped to it. A family portrait. Him, the girl, and the woman outside. His body sagged forward before anyone could catch him. The billionaire collapsed. Gasps echoed through the boutique like gunshots. 2 assistants screamed. Someone knocked over a champagne flute. Outside, the woman blinked once. No emotion, no tears. Just calm. She slipped the photo back into her coat, pulled out a dusty phone, typed one line, sent it. Then she waited. Medics rushed past her as if she were a ghost. For 2 years, Maya Ellis moved through the world as a ghost, invisible in daylight, unspoken at night. She'd once worn surgical scrubs and held newborns in her gloved hands, a pediatric surgeon on the rise, respected, focused, precise. But all it took was one betrayal to erase a life's work, one unanswered call, one signature on a falsified report. Victor Langston had vanished without a word. No closure, no explanation, just gone. She found out she was pregnant 3 weeks later. Now, barefoot on the sidewalk outside his flagship boutique, Maya stood silently as medics circled him like royalty fallen from a throne. Her coat hung off her shoulders like a scarecrow's shell. Her lips were cracked, her nails broken, but her spine was still straight. She didn't look away. Inside, panic began to bleed into gossip, shock into spectacle. Did he faint? Who is she? I think she said Mommy? Oh my God. The boutique manager lowered her voice, but didn't lower her disdain. Call security, now. A suited guard stepped forward, already frowning. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Immediately. Maya didn't respond. She simply glanced down at her phone, screen still lit from the message she had just sent. 1 bar of signal. Enough. She's mentally unstable, someone muttered from inside. This is harassment. She's homeless, obviously. God, she's probably on something. She's scaring the child. But the child wasn't afraid. Ella, her daughter. The little girl had pressed both hands against the boutique glass like it was the only thing separating her from salvation. That's my Mommy, she screamed again. Louder now, panic rising in her voice. Mommy! 2 guards tried to distract her. One tried to pull her back. She fought like a kitten, claws of desperation, soft but unrelenting. Inside, one boutique clerk, young, maybe 21, name tag read Naomi, stood frozen. She had been folding a silk blouse, but her eyes were locked on Maya. then to the child, then to Victor, unconscious on the floor. Her lips parted slightly. She wasn't sure why, but something in her gut stirred. "That woman," she whispered. "Something's not right." Her voice was low, almost ashamed, but it was the first breath of dissent, the first crack in the silence. Outside, Maya didn't blink. She had waited years for the truth to come into the light. Now she could feel the heat of it beginning to rise. The phones were up now, rows of tiny blinking eyes capturing every inch of her. Maya didn't flinch. She had stood on surgical floors soaked in blood. She had begged for medical board hearings in rooms that spat her out before she'd even opened her mouth. She had given birth alone on the floor of a shelter bathroom. Camera lenses didn't scare her. Inside, she felt no heat, no flutter of nerves. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that came after drowning. Not the panic of going under, but the strange, holy silence of floating back up. Alive, uninvited, and unafraid. Across the boutique floor, Victor Langston was sitting up now, surrounded by handlers and chaos. Color was draining back into his face like shame re-entering a lie. His jaw slackened when his eyes met hers again. Recognition was slow. Denial faster. She's dead, he muttered hoarsely, as if trying to cast a spell that would undo what stood in front of him. Ella se aferró más fuerte a la fotografía desgastada en su pequeña mano. Her voice, unlike the adults, didn't tremble. "She's not." The crowd shifted. Some stepped closer. Others whispered to their phones. Maya stood like the eye of a hurricane, not calm because there was no storm, but because she was the storm, held, waiting. Victor's PR rep, a wiry man in overpriced shoes and panic behind his glasses, pushed through the circle forming around them. "Get her out of here, I don't care how." TMZ's already tipped off the boutique manager nodded frantically. Security took a step toward her. Maya raised her head. That was all. And they paused. Not because she looked dangerous, but because she looked sure. The kind of certainty they hadn't seen in anyone today. Not even the billionaire now struggling to breathe in the presence of his past. "You don't recognize me," Maya said, her voice low and clean, spoken like a line from a courtroom transcript. The words dropped like a needle on a vinyl record, stopping the room's rhythm for half a beat. Victor stared, searching, failing. Maya's lips curled into something soft, not a grin, not a threat, a polite invitation. "Let's talk, privately." No drama, no accusations. Just calm. But everyone felt the undertow pulling now. The storm was beginning to turn. The boutique's back office was too clean, sterile. Maya sat in a chair that wasn't meant for people like her, ragged, dust-covered, and barefoot. But her spine stayed straight and her gaze steady. Victor stood across from her, silent, hands trembling, knuckles white around a bottle of Evian he hadn't opened. He looked like a man grasping for air in a room that suddenly felt smaller than his guilt. "No one," he started. "No one told me. You disappeared, Maya. I didn't know." Her voice didn't rise. "Because I was erased," Victor flinched. "I was blacklisted, overnight. The malpractice suit, fabricated." She laid her hands on the table, fingers steady. "You were listed as the key complainant. Your signature was on the form that ended my license." Victor blinked. "What?" Maya reached into the worn messenger bag beside her chair, tattered but organized with surgical precision. She pulled out a folder, slid it across the table like a blade disguised in paper. Victor opened it. His signature stared back at him. Crisp, legal, damning. He swallowed. "I never signed this." "I know." She said it with no triumph, no drama, just certainty. There was a knock. The door creaked open, and Naomi, the young boutique clerk, stepped in quietly, almost reverently. She looked at Victor with barely hidden judgment, then turned to Maya. "I found it," she whispered, offering a small flash drive. "From the hospital security archives. That day. The original file, Maya accepted it gently, like an artifact unearthed after years beneath rubble. "Thank you." Naomi nodded once and left. Victor looked between Maya and the USB, confusion and fear tangled across his face. "Maya, who are you, really?" She met his eyes fully now, not with anger, not even sadness, with something deeper, reclamation. She didn't answer him directly. She didn't need to. She just turned to the laptop on the desk, inserted the USB and said, "Let's finish this." Victor's private conference room smelled of cold steel and money, glass walls, leather seats, screens embedded into polished stone. It was a room built for domination, but right now it was Maya who held gravity. She slid the USB into the port. Her movements were unhurried but precise, like a surgeon preparing the table. A soft electronic chime echoed as the screen lit up. Then, footage, security camera grain, a timestamp from 2 years prior, the hospital lobby. Victor leaned forward, his breath already shallow. The screen showed Maya, fresh-faced, in pale scrubs, eyes tired but steady, being approached by two men in dark suits. One clutched a folder. The other flashed a badge. Victor's brows furrowed. "I've never seen this." On screen, the men flanked Maya, guided her, no, forced her, into a private consultation room. Her mouth moved rapidly, hands raised in refusal. They closed the door behind her. Then, cut to another feed, a conference room. Victor's chief of staff, Edward Klein, sitting with a stack of legal papers. The footage zoomed slightly. Klein glanced over his shoulder and then lifted a pen. On the screen, the ink curled across the paper. Victor Langston. Victor stared in disbelief. His own name, written in someone else's hand. His voice came as a whisper, hoarse with disbelief. "You were set up." Maya nodded once, still calm, still centered. "I was," she said, "by people who needed me silent." She didn't blink as she spoke, didn't falter. "They took my license, my credibility, my job offers, my ability to rent a safe home, all of it, based on a forgery and a lie." Victor collapsed into the leather chair behind him, shaking his head. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." She looked at the screen, not with longing or sorrow, but with analytical precision. Then she turned back to him. "But I didn't come here to beg." Victor looked up, confused. "Then why?" Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "To tell the truth," Maya said, "for her." She turned her head toward the glass wall. And there stood Ella, small hands pressed to the glass, her face solemn and wide-eyed, watching her mother not as a victim, but as a warrior reclaiming her name. The boardroom lights dimmed as the footage played. No one looked at Maya. They watched the screen, jawlines tightening, fingers fidgeting, glances darting across the table. The once confident circle of executives looked like children caught stealing. The scene of Edward Klein forging Victor's signature froze on the final frame. Victor stood at the head of the table, hands trembling over the remote. "This," he said, voice rough, "was hidden from me." She was hidden from me. Maya sat silently in the corner, back straight, hands folded in her lap. She didn't defend, didn't accuse. She didn't need to. The truth was doing all the work now. One board member leaned forward. "How did this happen?" Another scoffed. "Are we seriously entertaining this? She's..." "What? Living in shelters? She could be manipulating this whole..." A loud click, Maya rising from her chair. All eyes turned. She stepped forward with calm precision. Not anger, not plea. Calm, firm truth. "I've lived on less than $40 a week," she said evenly. "I've slept near dumpsters while your legal team profited from lies." Her eyes scanned the room, unapologetic, sharp. "And I'm still more honest than anyone sitting at this table." Silence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then, a sound. Soft footsteps. Small. Ella, unnoticed until now, slipped past the boardroom door and walked straight to Maya. The girl didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around Maya's waist and rested her cheek against her side. Gasps rippled across the room. Phones came out. Cameras, live streams already buzzing from outside, caught the image through the glass. The little girl clinging to the homeless woman. The homeless woman, steady as steel. Victor Langston, head bowed in disbelief. No words from him. None needed. The crowd outside the building, huddled behind press lines, watched the feed from someone's phone. And for the first time, they didn't see a vagrant. They saw a mother, a doctor, a woman betrayed, and a child who had always known the truth. The door creaked open. Everyone turned. Dr. Caleb Ellis stepped inside. Gray suit, silver beard, eyes that had seen too much to be impressed. The room froze. Victor's lips parted in disbelief. "Dr. Ellis," one of the board members choked out. "You're still active?" Caleb walked with slow purpose, a worn leather folder in his hands. He placed it at the center of the table with surgical precision. "I've been silent," he said, voice low, heavy with weight. "But silence doesn't mean ignorance." He looked directly at Victor. "You silenced my daughter," he continued. "You let her disappear under a lie, but you couldn't silence the truth." Victor stepped back. You're her father," Caleb said calmly, "and for 30 years, a silent partner in the Langston Foundation. You never noticed because I never wanted attention. I invested in people, not egos." He opened the folder. Inside were letters Maya wrote from shelters, pleading for work, dignity, a chance. Job rejections, stamped "Do not hire" in quiet black ink. Copies of hospital records. In a timeline, how Maya's life was stolen piece by forged emails, false claims, and silent erasure. Victor scanned the pages, his face paling. "You knew this whole time?" he asked, voice cracking. Caleb's gaze didn't waver. "Not all of it. But I suspected. Maya wouldn't fight with lawsuits or noise. She fights with proof." Naomi stepped closer, eyes wide. "You're that doctor, Ellis, the one who wrote—" "Let them read," Caleb said, nodding toward the folder. Victor backed away from the table like it might burn him. "I was going to marry her," he whispered,